Welcome, college basketball fans, to the Full Court Press Podcast with LT and Sammy D. This is the podcast that brings you legendary stories from college basketball's golden era and dives in deep with a current analysis of today's game. Get ready for the most energetic and entertaining college basketball podcast around. Let's get it.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Full Court Press, a college basketball coaches show powered by the Full Court Network. LT here. Sam got scared, and I told this fine gentleman who we're going to talk to a little bit of basketball about that when you have a PhD in psychology, I believe this is like therapy for my wife. So hopefully we just talk basketball, Coach. But we got Coach Johnny Tower from the St. Thomas Tommies. Welcome to the Full Court Press, Coach.
Hey, thank you very much. Pleasure to be on here. And I can tell you all that means is I probably live in my own head a little bit more than I'd like. But no, interesting journey we're on, and I'm thrilled to be on the show.
Yeah. So actually, how I heard of you guys is I watched your game last year against Michigan State, and I was really impressed. I know you lost it, but it was a really good game, and I was really impressed how your players play. And I started kind of, researching about your background and stuff like that. It's a really fascinating background. First and foremost, you were and are a ball player. Or were, I guess, are is a little bit because you're getting a little bit older like me, but it's the only job you ever had, which is crazy. You've been there for 24 years, 14 years as a head coach. I mean, do you know anything differently than St. Thomas?
I don't. You sound like my buddies who tell me I got to get out of the same area code. So I grew up in St. Paul. My dad went to St. Thomas. He's a 1963 grad. He was a golfer here, not a basketball player. But I went to the games here starting when I was probably 6 or 7 years old. Didn't necessarily think I'd come here for college, but then ended up, playing 4 years here. We had some really good teams. Played under Steve Fritz, legendary coach. And then from 95 to 2000, I was at the University of Wisconsin. I got my PhD there and studied motivation and social psychology. Knew that I wanted to be a coach. Got to watch Dick Bennett's teams at Wisconsin during that time. I was not anywhere near their staff. They would not have wanted me, but I was a young grad student and then sort of serendipitously ended up back here at St. Thomas. One of my former professors passed away unexpectedly. And so I came back as a full-time professor, volunteer assistant Division III basketball coach, and did that for 11 years. So it's a pretty unique background, but I've been here. This is year 25, and I taught 21 years of psychology, and I've run basketball camps here for 30 years since I was a senior in high school. So no, this is very much home for me, and I feel so blessed to be here.
Yeah. So since you're a tenured professor, are you a tenured coach then? They can't ever get rid of you?
I am not. They can fire me anytime they want, but I can go back to teaching. So they're stuck with me that way. Yeah, being a tenured professor has some real perks to it. And it's been, I do think that oftentimes there's so much teaching that goes into coaching. And I always tell my students, There's a lot of coaching that should happen in teaching where you're trying to create a collaborative learning environment in the classroom. So it's been wonderful doing those things and doing a lot of research and just being at a school that I believe so strongly in the mission and so grateful for the way it impacted me when I was in school.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're 6th all time in conference history in 3-pointers. Can you still shoot the rock against some of your players like you used to?
I can still shoot. My head coach would have said that there was not much else I could do but shoot then, and I think that's probably still true now. Shooting's a little like riding a bike. It actually, my middle son, I have 3 sons and a daughter, and he's a walk-on redshirt freshman on our team. The other day he said to me, which I think was a backhanded compliment, he's like, "Dad, how come you can still shoot pretty well?" Which the insinuation was you're old, you're not in very good shape, you can't move. Man. But I was like, hey, it's sort of like riding a bike. So yeah, if there's one thing I can do with a basketball, it's shoot it.
Yeah, my 11-year-old told me that he could beat me in a race. I'm slow. I said, well, I will beat you in a race because I'm going to tackle you first, and then I'm going to run. But yeah, really interesting story. I love that you have such a passion for the Tommies and the community. I mean, your dad went there, played golf, which is awesome. So I was reading a little bit about kind of the history, the transition, the transformation. So you guys were a really good D3 program, and I read somewhere that the conference that you were in kind of pushed you out because you guys were dominant? Because you don't really hear of D3 to D1 transitions like that.
No, it was wild. We were a founding member of the MIAC, Minnesota Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, and they've been in it over a century. We got involuntarily removed was the phrase that they used in 2019. and it did kind of blow up. ESPN, they had, national coverage because it was sort of unheard of. And we, there were a number of reasons for it. I won't go into all of them.
Right.
But a lot of it was competitive reasons. We had, at the end, we had won 14 of 15 conference titles, including 12 in a row. We had won 2 national titles. And as I say that, it was really competitive every year. Like every year we knew in an 11-team conference, it was going to be tough. But across the board, we had really good athletic programs. And I think when we were removed, there was questions. We could have gone to another Division III conference. We could have moved up to Division II. The reason you haven't heard about it is, to the best of our knowledge, no school has simultaneously taken all of its programs from D3 to D1.
Right.
In large part because you can't. And my boss, Phil Eston, who actually ironically graduated with me in 1995 at St. Thomas, he was a baseball player. He had a totally different journey. So he was at Cal Berkeley in Minnesota and Ohio State and Penn State. And he came back from Penn State, and 6 months later, we got kicked out of the conference. And so we joke all the time, like, I don't know if he thought he was coming back to his alma mater, or he's coming back to do this historic leap, but it's been really fun sort of charting that course. And then the Summit League invited us. And so all of a sudden we went D3 to D1, which you haven't heard of it because it really hasn't happened. So it's, we joke that, if there's a D3 to D1 for Dummies book, it's not out there. Maybe we can write that. I don't know if we can write anything else, but it's been a wild ride. And we're excited about what we've done and really think we have a bright future at St. Thomas.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. What I find really fascinating, we were talking a little bit off air. I mean, we went right into it. It was fun. I had to stop you because I'm like, we're going to get all the good stuff before we even start the interview. It's very fascinating to me that you went from a very highly, you were always a very competitive program. And I don't like to put D3, D2, D1 NAIA labels. Ball is ball. Good ball is good basketball, wherever it is. We kind of talked about that before. But as a first-year D1 program with all pretty much non-scholarship athletes from the year before, your starting 5, you won 10 games. Like that's monumental when you really look at it from a big picture. And then the next year, you won 19 games. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's been, and the first year we did not know, now these kids, like those 5 kids who started for us that first year, think about their life. They came to college in like 2017, 2018, and their goal was get a great degree from St. Thomas and win a national title. And those aren't the only 2 goals, but those were 2 of the tangible ones. And they were, over 3 years, they lost 8 total games. And they went to a Sweet 16. And then we were 4th in the country, and COVID ended that season. And then we went undefeated the next year, but there wasn't a national tournament in D3, and COVID ended that season. And then the next year we jumped to D1. So imagine these kids, like you talk about kids that are near and dear to your heart. These 9 guys, 5 of them were starters, but 9 guys made the jump from D3 to D1. And they had to totally recalibrate, in a world during COVID that we were all doing that. And then all of a sudden they go from saying, hey, we've lost 8 games in 3 years, and now we're going to go into every game as an underdog. And, the beautiful thing about that journey, I thought, that first year, they were not used to losing, and we won 10 games, and every time we won, it was like the Super Bowl. We also lost 12 straight games that year. So it's not like, hey, everything was rosy every single day. But for me, when I talk about our culture at St. Thomas, that was the best pressure test of our culture I'll ever see. Like, you watch a team lose 12 straight games and stick together in this era and still love each other and not argue, and then finish the year winning 2 of their last 3 games. And then that springboarded us. The next year we won 19. And mind you, we were still starting 4 former Division III players the second year when we won 19 games. And then last year we won 20, and we were starting 3 former Division III players. So I have so much respect for Division III basketball and love for those guys who helped us make this journey. But it really has been kind of this wild ride that, as you joke a little at the outset, like, I've been at St. Thomas my whole life, but I like to joke, I don't need a midlife crisis when you talk about, like, hey, we just jumped D3 to D1, and I got a 3-year-old daughter at home who she's got lots of ideas of her own. So I think we're the coolest story in college basketball. I'm really biased, but it's
and it's really fascinating. I mean, I think that's why when I started watching you guys play Michigan State, I did some research, and we just started the show and stuff like that. I mean, I've heard of St. Thomas, but I'm like, is it in Florida? I mean, there's multiple St. Thomas universities and colleges and what have you. I mean, that St. Thomas more even. But what I find very fascinating is your leading scorer is a D3 transfer from UW Whitewater, who was, top 40 in scoring Division III, and he keeps it going. I mean, tell me kind of his transition, but also tell me the really big difference between D3 and D1 basketball. Is there much of a difference?
Well, I mean, yes, there is a difference, right? And I say this as a Division III player. Coaches are really good at evaluating. And so by and large, the kids we got at Division III, well, you can see my office right behind me, unselfish, smart, skilled, tough. That's what we look for. Those aren't the only quality, but those are four of the hallmarks. And in Division III, I would always talk about, we want to get the third best player on a state champion. That was the heuristic I used for our assistant coaches, because those guys knew how to win. They were unselfish. They were really good, but they also were willing to take a charge. They were willing to set a screen. They were willing to reverse the ball, all that stuff. Those 9 guys who made the transition, and several of them did it at a really high level. Last year, we brought in a D3 transfer from St. Mary's, Raheem Anthony. He ended up being all conference for us last year in the Summit League. So not only have we had 9 of our own guys make the jump, but Raheem was the first one we brought in from D3, and now Miles Barnstable from Whitewater. And Miles, I mean, there is a transition. If you talk to these guys, for sure. And I think you mean Marquette, not Michigan State from last year. Marquette was the game where we played on the road and they were top 5.
Marquette, sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah.
And Raheem, but if you go watch that game, Raheem didn't flourish early in the season. There were some growing pains, and it wasn't that he couldn't play. It was just, hey, these guys he averaged 25, 10, and 5 in Division III. I mean, it was literally like LeBron James. And when you're a 6'3" guard, though, doing that in Division I's a little different. Now, by the end of the season, Raheem led us in rebounds, steals, assists, second in points. I mean, he literally led us in almost every category, and that was his first year in D1. Miles is a junior, so he's got 2 years with us, and he's doing really, really well. But the thing, again, I go back to our culture. That is what's carried us through, whether we're bringing in D3 transfers, D2 transfers, but by and large, we're recruiting high school guys, and it's getting them to play really the same style that we've always played. But we are, like this year, our fans are finally like, whoa, we got some guys who can dunk. We got some guys who can block shots. I mean, the first year, if you go look, we were first in the country in fewest turnovers. Think about that. A D3 group led the country in D3 in fewest turnovers. Then they led the country in D1 in fewest turnovers. We led the country in 3-point attempts. We also led the country in fewest blocks and worst defense. Like, we were just a total bimodal team, but we knew who we are. Now we're starting to get more athletic guys. And so I really think the first 3 years have laid a really strong foundation in Division I. And our university has a lot of exciting things. We're building a $200 million arena that will be open next season. And so when I just look at year over year over year, the continual growth, it's something to look forward to for our fans. That's for sure.
How difficult was it, especially with NIL and the transfer portal? How difficult, because you've had such a mindset when you played there, you got recruited obviously too, and then you've been playing or coaching and recruiting. How different or difficult has the mindset been for you to kind of shift to the new age of college basketball?
It's different for every coach. I know that, right? And I don't care if you're one of the haves who have millions of dollars in NIL money or you don't have NIL money. It is different. And I think, and this probably I'll get too psychological with you, but this is what I studied in my PhD work, is intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. And one of the hallmarks of our program has been finding guys who are intrinsically motivated, who truly love basketball. And I think one of the challenges in today's era is it's harder than ever for young people to be intrinsically motivated when they have people in their ears telling them, if you go here, you'll make this much money, right? And so, absolutely, it is a challenge. I think we spend more time talking to our guys, though, about, hey, what's life really about, right? And at 18 to 22, our job is to help them through this journey. It's not just as basketball players, it's as students and as people. And so we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about, look at, you only get 4 years of college basketball. If the right thing to do is leave St. Thomas at some point, we're going to support you and help you in that. But be careful, right? The grass is not always greener. And I think one of the things that we're probably proudest of in the last 2 years And Andrew Rohde, for example, he's at Virginia now. He was freshman of the year in the Summit League, first team all-conference as a freshman, and he went to Virginia. Well, he was going to play for Tony Bennett. They're the 2019 national champs. Virginia's a great school. The weather's a little warmer than Minnesota. Like, I love Andrew to death. I could understand that decision. He's one of 2 undergrads the last 2 years. So 21 of 23 who could have come back did. And so as much as we all love to talk about the transfer portal, I look at our guys and I'm like, hey, if you look around this campus in the Twin Cities and our alumni network and this education and the future we have, I think we've done a good job of really trying to recruit guys who are running to St. Thomas, because this is a special story. And I think we've been able so far, at least, to maintain the vast majority of our players because they love the experience at a school like St. Thomas.
Yeah, and I thought that was really impressive looking at your roster construction. You have a lot of freshmen, especially this year. But Kendall Blue, I mean, that's a perfect example, right? I mean, he just keeps improving. And I think you're right, the grass is not always green. And we've had almost 100 head coaches on the show in the last year and a bit. And it's funny because it's transformational, not transactional. It's trying to help these kids. And if you notice the kids that come back after a year or two, you know, like the Zeke Mayos at South Dakota State, played there, did really well. Obviously, you know, did his time, and he's playing now at Kansas. So, I mean, I can understand that. But what I don't like is when kids just keep jumping year after year after year after year. Like, what are you searching for? What are you trying to get?
Yeah, and I think that's certainly some of that you want to vet in the recruiting process. As coaches, I know this, we all talk about what's the likelihood a kid's going to stay here. And there's 2 paths, right? One is you're not playing a lot of minutes, so you're unhappy, so you leave. The other is you're playing a lot of minutes, so you want to, you know, jump to a higher level or make more money, whatever it might be. To us, it's finding guys that really will embrace. If you end up here for 4 years, you're going to be happy about it. If a situation arises where you should transfer, we're going to support you. But I really believe if you're at a school that provides that holistic development, you can't, that's not worth, I can't put a number of dollars on that, but you and I both know those from when I look at my closest friends in the world, probably 6 of the 12 closest friends are college teammates. And you don't get that if you're jumping from program to program to program. You don't get the same degree, the same relationships. And so it's an interesting time in college athletics right now, but I do believe at the end of all this, like any market, once it settles and it regulates, I do think that the schools that truly offer that transformational experience are going to be the ones best off, because kids are going to stay there. And if you see anything in college basketball, old wins and continuity wins. And if you've got a culture that has those 2 things, I think you're going to have something special.
Yeah, I love it. I love that you said when the dust settles. When's the dust settling, Coach? Because I'm kind of getting sick of covering it.
Hey, I think we're all holding on. But I do come back. And again, this isn't our program, but I tell our staff all the time, look, we can talk about transfer portal, who we're going to go after in the spring, maybe blah, blah, blah. Yeah. If 21 of our 23 the last 2 years have come back, the best predictor of future behavior is typically past behavior. And so probably we're going to have most of our kids come back, and there will be times they leave. But I think our philosophy has been, let's keep recruiting high school kids. Generally, that's been our philosophy, who are going to embrace our culture. And, you know, you talk about a kid like Kendall Blue. He was one of the first kids to commit. He committed to St. Thomas before we had ever played a Division I game. And he was a local kid. I had known him since he was in 7th grade. I mean, to take that leap of faith, him and his family at one point, you know, Santa Clara wanted him. At one point, he had a Marquette offer. Like, you look at guys like that, and I think the experience Kendall's had, and he's been a 3-year starter, the legacy he's going to leave. You know, he was the guy at our press conference when Liam Penny Anderson donated $70 million for our new $200 million arena. Kendall was the one giving him a number 1 jersey. I don't know what that experience, I can't put a price tag on it, but I know Kendall Blue is going to leave a legacy here at St. Thomas that's going to be really special. Yeah. And so that's, you know, it's our job has changed, but our goals have not changed as educators and coaches. And we got to remember that.
Yep. Big picture, right? It's big picture.
Absolutely.
What do you think about 9 teams in a conference? You know, we have conversations about this. You know, there's conferences that have 18 teams and 16 teams and 12. How do you like 9?
Well, I mean, we had 10 2 years ago. Western Illinois moved to the OVC. I think certainly from a travel partner perspective, even numbers are better. Given the one bid league, and I heard Billy Donlin, who's a good friend on here, proposing I love his 128 team. I think they should just make Billy the czar of college basketball or something.
He said no one would listen to him.
I listen to Billy. I'll tell you that. Billy's one of the most entertaining guys in college basketball.
My God.
And I say that even being 0-2 in our career against him at Kansas City. That's how we first got to know each other when we were our first year in the Summit League. But I do think in this era of one bid leagues, the clear advantage is, okay, you don't want 50. If only one team's getting in, I don't know that you want 15 teams. I think probably an even number, 9, 10, 12 is a good number. But at the end of the day, we don't control that. I mean, there's been so much conferences have become more transient than ever. And so I think commissioners, just like athletic directors, just like coaches, have a challenging job. And I love the Summit League, though. The travel is really good. There's some great rivalries already, having been in it through 3 years. And so we really like the Summit League.
Yeah. And it's really, it's gotten better. I mean, Kansas City is really doing some great things. I mean, North Dakota State, I mean, all those, all those programs and what have you. Now, let me ask you this, and I was trying to think what I was going to ask you, but it was something good, but I can't remember. So let's do this. How about we do this one? So we do a shot clock. All right. And Sam usually sets it up, and there's no really time limit. Just say what comes to your mind. Just kind of quick, easy answers, and some good, some tough, some easy, some hard. So we'll just start you off. Okay.
Fire away.
This one should be an easy one. One word to describe St. Thomas.
Unprecedented.
Ooh, that's thoughtful. One word to describe the Summit League.
Competitive.
Okay. Which is the toughest, doesn't matter if it's Summit League or not, toughest place to coach in the last 3 years, or even D3? Let's go to your D3. What is the toughest gym or arena to coach in that you've coached in, or played for that matter?
I'll tell you, Creighton, 18,000 people, and we took the lead with 8 minutes left against them in our second year D1. 4 guys who were playing D3 ball 18 months earlier, and we're up 2 on a top 10 team in the country. And so that environment was just, for our guys, that was one of those pinch me moments for them, because literally, before that, I don't know the largest crowd they had played in. So Creighton was really electric.
Right. Okay. Most memorable win, and also your hardest loss. So we're going to go to joy and pain.
This is like a therapy session.
Welcome. I'm switching around on you.
I'll say the most memorable win. I mean, I'd say in Division III, it would have been one of our national championships in 2011 and 2016. But in Division I, I'd say the first win, St. Francis in Brooklyn. It was like one of those picturesque. We literally walked to the arena. We were 6 blocks away. We walked through a snowstorm to the arena. We played the game. You can imagine the guys just kind of celebrating afterwards. And so that first win in St. Francis, Brooklyn, I'll never forget. Painful loss. I'm glad you said singular, because we have 5 losses around the office that all of us is banned from ever talking about, because we all have them. It's like scar tissue. You just gave me permission to talk about. The toughest loss, man, probably 2017 against Augustana in the first round of the national tournament. Okay. We were the national champs in 2016. We had beaten them in the Elite Eight. We had great rivalries. And then we were up 8 with like 45 seconds left the next year. And I must have started coaching, and we ended up losing on a shot that ends up on ESPN and the buzzer beater, and they go to the national finals. So that would be up there, but I got 5 others like that. You coach long enough, and you're just going to have those games that.
Well, it's funny when you talk stocks, you always talk about the winners. You never talk about the duds. But when you're a coach, you always talk about the losses over the wins. It's so funny. Right?
You forget all the games that buzzer beaters rim in and out, and you end up winning by 1. But the ones that go in, it's like, those are things you carry with you forever. So
that's funny. All right. So who has been called for the most team fouls per game in the Summit League so far?
Which team?
Which team?
Oof. I'll go with Omaha.
Wow, Coach Crutchfield, you are wrong. We're going to go Denver Pioneers with 21.6 fouls per game. That's a lot of fouls.
Jeff's got him playing physically there. Okay.
Well, it sounds like it. And then who has fouled the least in your conference so far?
Fouled the least? Man, none of us think our team's foul. I'm going to say I'll go with Celtic.
You are correct. I was going to say, who do you think the referees are the most likable coach? And it's got to be Coach Hendu. It's also the tallest.
Hendo, I just got off the phone with him 2 minutes before talking to you. I said I got to get off the phone, and he wasn't. We get talking. He does a phenomenal job. So is that the right answer? South Dakota State? 14.7.
You are fourth with 17.5.
Okay. So we've been working on it. We're trending in a good direction. Though we were fouling way too much early in the year. We got 5 freshmen, 4 redshirt freshmen. We got some young guys that are, they're a little over aggressive. So we're getting better.
Oh, yeah. That's okay. Hey, you can't teach aggression, right? Funniest recruiting story. Give me one funny recruiting story that comes off the top of your head. We've had everything to bad chili, to wrong airports, to wrong cities, to picking kids up at Six Flags, for recruiting trips.
Man, that's a good one. I'd say recruiting is wild. I'll go with what would it have been last 2 years ago. This is hard to ask somebody who's done this 25 years. I'll give you one in D3. We in D3 there were no rules, so you could go see a kid. I shouldn't say there are no rules, but very few rules.
Right.
And so we had seen a kid like 20 straight times play, and we're like, how many times we want you. He wanted to play at a higher level. His name's Anders Nelson. He ended up being our point guard in our first year at D1. We finally took him for a walk around a lake. And I was like, if we get him like a third of the way around a lake, he can't escape, and now we can start asking him some really tough questions. And so that was that walk around the lake with Anders Nelson. That would be, I've never done that before, never done it since, but I was like, I just need an hour with him. He's wonderful. We're close to this day. He's playing professionally over in Greece right now. But yeah, how about that one?
That's awesome. All right, last question. So if they made a Hollywood movie about your life, who would play you, and what would the title be?
Oh man, you need to generate revenue, right? So you got to tell a story people want to hear. Man, I'll go with Woody Harrelson, just because I grew up watching the movie White Men Can't Jump, and I kind of got a kick out of that. So I'd like him doing that. And what would the title of it be?
Yeah. Longevity.
I was trying to work in psychological basketball coach and longevity. So sustained psychological success. How about that?
How about psycho?
Well, that my wife might say that.
Psychology.
I think I'm nice with the rest. And my wife Chancey, she founded a charter school in the Twin Cities 13 years ago, and she's always like, do you know, you coaches, and not just me, she's like, you guys act and stomp around on the sidelines and have all these hysterical movements. We don't allow grade school kids to do this at recess. Like, what are you guys doing? You need to grow up. So she'd endorse that title.
You know what you should tell her? I also get paid to do it. I get paid for it also.
Hey, referee, you know it. The communication between coaches and referees is unique, but there's no way around it. It's loud gyms. There's emotion involved, and it's fun talking college hoops. That's for sure.
Well, absolutely. So, Coach, I'm going to give you the last minute to kind of have the platform, what have you. You're 9-4. You got 2 more non-conference games, and you go against at North Dakota, January 4th. What can you say to the fans, the alumni, the students, the boosters about the Tommies this year?
Well, it's been with a young team to be 9-4 at this point. We've won 5 straight games. And I think we're the highest. We've moved up in the net and Ken Palm every single year. And this is the highest we've been ranked at this time of the year by quite a bit. So more than anything, I thank our fans and our alums, because what they're helping do, I do think this is as unique a story as you're going to find in college basketball. And I tell college basketball fans around the country, do a little reading on the Tommies, because it is a truly unique journey. Our guys are unbelievable student athletes, and I think we have a really bright future. We're eligible to go to the tournament after our 5th year in Division I, so we aren't at this point. And we've been able to recruit through that. So it's been one of the most special journeys that I could have been on. Awesome. And it's a cool school. So check out the Tommies.
Yep, absolutely. Coach, you're going to stick on for one more minute, but hey, like he said, thank you to Coach Tower for joining us on the Full Court Press, a college basketball coaches show, and also check out the Tommies. We really love the Summit League. We've had Coach Crutchfield, Coach Henderson on the show. Now we've had Coach Tower, but don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Follow us on all our social media channels, and we'll be back next week on the Full Court Press, a college basketball coaches show.